This sacred book is living and active and contains all that's needed for life and godliness. Welcome to Exploring the Word. Merry Christmas.
Welcome to Exploring the Word today. Alex McFarland, Bert Harper. You're listening to the American Family Radio Network. We're going to continue in Isaiah chapter 27, our study of this very significant prophetic Old Testament book. But we're also going to take calls later on in the show. And if you're a regular listener, you know these days we take prayer requests. And we take the Bible questions as we regularly do, but we kind of pray for each other. We maximize on prayer on Tuesdays, and this day will be no exception. But Bert, I'm loving our study of Isaiah. I know it's very much in depth, but Isaiah 27 is where we were yesterday, and there was talk of punishing Leviathan, that twisted serpent, which in very much is pictorial of Satan and the fallen world systems. But there's going to be talk about the Lord's vineyard, a song of praise to God for his care of the vineyard. And Bert, the talk about the Lord's vineyard, does that kind of remind you of John 15, where Jesus said, I'm the vine, you are the branches, and the husbandman cares for the vineyard? Did it sort of remind you of that even?
It does, and I would say this: anytime you hear about a vineyard or a vine, that passage is so strong and so real. Anybody that has a good bit of Bible knowledge, I think they would go back there and just relate it, Alex. We are to abide in him, and this is, I'm just going to say it, what an opportunity every believer has to abide in him. It's not just being attached, but it's abiding in. When you think of the body, we as the body, it's the blood flow. When you think of the vine, it's that connection and I would say all the juices that go from one to the other. And so, yes, I do, Alex. And I didn't mean to go on and on about it,
No.
but it's a beautiful picture of our relationship that we have with Christ Jesus.
Well, Isaiah 27 talks about the guilt of Jacob, which is really dealt with by way of exile. And those that were perishing will one day worship the Lord. But do you know, Israel over and over, when they would sort of backslide, not sort of, but they would backslide, they would be exiled very often, taken out of their land. And even to this day, Israel, and we are big supporters of the nation of Israel, but even to this day, they don't fully occupy all of the land that God promised Abraham. Now, they will one day, we know that, but the exile of Jacob was part of what was due to his sin. But we're going to pick it up there in 7. Let me read a little bit and then we'll comment. He has struck Israel as he struck those who struck him. Or has he been slain according to the slaughter of those who were slain by him? In measure, by sending it away, you contended with it. He removes it by his rough wind in the day of the east wind. And by the way, during the tribulation, soldiers will come from the east to fight at Armageddon. The east wind, I think, is really pictorial of how the judgment of God sometimes comes through the wrath of man. Therefore, by this, the iniquity of Jacob will be covered, and this is all the fruit of taking away his sin, when he makes all the stones of the altar like chalk stones that are beaten to dust. Wooden images and incense altars will not stand. There is a purging of idolatry, a purging of false religion, and a purging of unbelief. And chastisement is never fun. It can be painful. It is painful. But Bert, isn't even the chastisement of God an example of his love?
It is, because he wants us to turn. Over again, you'll have the word return. Sometimes it would just be plain turn or ye, as it says, plural, turn to the Lord. And so it's through that. And the book of Judges proves that as much as any book in the Bible. When they were serving God, and they would have a great time, but then they would turn away. God would send a judgment, and then he would send a deliverer, and he'd deliver them again and again. And so that is what God has used, and most of the time it is armies of other nations. Sometimes it's drought. difficulty, but it is used there. In verse 10, it concentrates on Jerusalem, and you'll find that all through the book of Isaiah. Yet the fortified city will be desolate, the habitation forsaken and left like a wilderness. There the calf will feed, and there it will lie down and consume its branches. And you see that again, Jerusalem. And Judah would be overrun by the Assyrians, but Jerusalem would not be captured. God would intervene at the right time, and then later on the Babylonians would come around, and they would even take Jerusalem, and they would be taken captive, as you said, Alex, because of their idolatry. Really is the issue, because the idolatry always led to immorality. The idolatry led to covetousness of the rich people and leave the other people behind. And so idolatry always leads to corruption, doesn't it?
It does. And let's talk about verse 10 there for a second. The fortified cities will be desolate. Now, Bert, what a lot of commentators think, and I think this is accurate, the world systems, the city of man, will be made desolate by the judgment of the Lord. And I want to talk about, in the English, the word fortified there for a minute. It's a Hebrew word, not going to try to pronounce it, but it means walled up. Now, it also means this: fortified cities, those from without are restrained. Let me give you an example. Maybe you've been through a city, and let's say there's a jewelry store, and when they close after hours, not only do they lock the door, but they pull down like some metal gate or something like that.